Alright, we have got that 20-page Dragon Quest advert in this one. Captain America 410. Rachel Diamond gets a revenge on Bane. Another weak cover. The idea is there. That's nearly always a thing with Ricardo Leavenworth. You can see a good cover with this image, but his composition is always weird. There is so much empty and dead space on this cover, and then the characters are in awkward poses. No matter what they are doing, he makes them look awkwardly posed. And then I think those empty spaces, I like that. Captain America and Falcon Man, they are storming Red Skull Man's mountain fortress to free Rachel Diamond. Now, one of the ulterior motives of this story was to re-establish Falcon Man in the title. He was clad in a new costume and ready to be reintegrated into the series more regularly. He had made a couple of appearances, like in issue 400, and before that was issue 355. But Marky Mark J hadn't properly had him as part of the book since the Captain days. He left the supporting cast in 346, and he had barely been seen outside of cameos or those two other appearances I mentioned. The character was redesigned by Ricardo Leavenworth, and this inspired Marky Mark J to try and usher him back into Captain America's comic. It debuted in Captain America Annual 11 in a backup story. They big up the reveal. They have a whole page devoted to setting up and teasing the unveiling of the new costume. And then they botch it on the next page in a few ways. But I do mostly like the redesign. I have talked about it before. There'll be a link to whatever video that was on screen maybe. And those awful epic collections you all love, put the annual in the volume after the one with this two-parter we're looking at that features that new costume. He fights Taskman. That's pretty notable. In that annual, he fights Taskman. He will be in the remainder of Marky Mark J's run a lot more often than he had been before now. The biggest missed opportunity would be doing a story with him that involved his reaction to learning that his cousin had and was dying from AIDS. It's a sort of story that could have worked to re-establish Falcon Man as a character rather than only as Captain America's flying hero friend. This issue should be a lot better than it is. It is a big fight between heroes and villains. We have got the purpose of using it to showcase Falcon Man and some of his new tricks. We have the desperately needed beatdown of Bane, who has been absolutely vicious to Rachel Diamond. And then, now we have reinforcements being called in. But the writing and the art are incredibly stiff. The best stuff is the Falcon Man versus Pumpkin King side plot. The writing and the art attached to it are when it is strongest. Meanwhile, we have D-Man. D-Man has stumbled into the caverns beneath Central Park where the Zero People live. The Zero People are a group of homeless people, a community of homeless people from Jack Quimby's run on Captain America. We will get around to this D-Man stuff in 418. It's not very good either. And treating it like a tantalising subplot over several issues is ludicrous. Nobody is excited to see D-Man befriend the Zero People. Falcon Man beats Pumpkin King. He can now deploy his wings to fire at enemies. That is a power-up I'm surprised they got rid of. It is a bit cumbersome here, but that could be refined afterwards. It allows more mobility and versatility with his main accoutrement. That is good. Now, however, we have our Dragon Quest adverts. I've had a few of these on here over the years. We have a multi-page advertisement for a tabletop card game, and the way that it is balanced means that you cannot remove it. It's not an insert, it's part of the comic. The Sleeper makes its first appearance in a long time, and its final appearance in Marky Mark G's run. This is the type of stiffness I mean when I talk about the art. That panel of him kicking Bane, it's appalling. I'd be considering that panel as one of the worst things Ricardo Leavenworth draws on Captain America, but I know there's other stuff like this. I have some sympathy for him. He was thrown in at the deep end. He started drawing the title with a story that features nearly 100 background characters. And bless him, he gave it a try. But what you hope is that he gets better after that he learns from the experience, that he owns in on what works for him. But instead his art on Captain America actually gets worse after that. By the end of his time, he's somehow putting out worse pieces than when he started on the title, having to draw every female supervillain on panel at once. Rachel Diamond, now with some super soldier syrup in her blood, once again escapes on her own, and she runs to join the fighting that is going on outside. She obviously has a score to settle with Bane, and we have a double whammy of bad storytelling here. Captain America, he falls over the edge of the cliff, and this means that Falcon Man has a neat chance to save Captain America, and now Darkwing, he wants to fight Falcon Man too. These are two great moments to further push Falcon Man. But at the same time, we do have the Rachel Diamond stuff with Bane, and that probably is more important. And so Falcon Man, He beats Darkwing and saves Captain America off panel. And here is the bit that made me turn on Marky Mark G's run. Rachel Diamond is free, and she is reunited with Captain America. This should be a happy moment. It is a good outcome. But Captain America thinks to himself how Rachel Diamond went too far with Bane. She was too brutal. Captain America has no idea what Rachel Diamond has been through. For all he knows, Bane could have done anything to her. There hasn't been any sit down and chat that has told him anything about what occurred. He knows that Bane is a piece of shit. The emotions he should be displaying here, he should be happy to have his girlfriend back, to have saved his girlfriend. He should be supportive of her and understanding, not prepared to lecture her on morality, if not for the timing. His first thought shouldn't be, you went a bit far there. This should be a victory. If Captain America has any issue with what happened, and there's nothing wrong with him having an issue with what happened, but he would rescind any judgment until he knows all the details of what happened here. He would have enough trust in Rachel Diamond that he understands she either wouldn't kill Bane, or that if something has pushed her that far, it must be severe. Most people point to Capwolf, or before that, there's the villain who wants to give him a sex change. That is where they think the run gets bad, but those are fickle reasons to give up on a run. They are like surface level reasons to turn on something. It's like the easy option. It's for people who don't put much thought into what they're reading. They say Capwolf, and to them, that is the worst thing ever. That is the breaking point for them. They don't even have to read it. They have a reason to think that it is shit. But there's no character betrayal in Capwolf. This, on the other hand, is horrible character writing of the fucking main star. There's nothing like that in those other stories. Steve Rogers and Captain America are in character for those. This is making him seem insensitive. It's making him holier than thou. It is interpreting Captain America as only capable of reacting as a judge of others. It's not a failure on my part to consider Steve Rogers' high regard for human life. It is a failure on Marky Mark G's part to not consider Steve Rogers as a human beneath his ideals. He shouldn't see someone he loves being pushed to the edge this much and only think how she has acted in a manner not befitting his standards. It's horrible writing. We as readers have seen Rachel Diamond suffer for almost 20 issues, and when she's finally free from torture, we are straight at the point where our lead character can only express doubt and distrust towards her with little attention given to the context. This will be all Rachel Diamond is doing for the rest of the run. She will murder someone in the next arc. She'll abandon Captain America. They break up off panel for fuck's sake. And then she becomes a villain again, completely undoing any fucking character arc or growth or anything done with Rachel Diamond as a character. And it can all be traced back to a moment like this. Marky Mark J lost sight of Captain America and Steve Rogers and could only write him through morals and ideals. And so he could only put Rachel Diamond on this track because after something like Capwolf lacked any actual character, and especially after Operation Galaxy Quest, where Steve Rogers' ethics and code of conduct were the centerpiece of the interpersonal drama, all that Captain America had left was that moral code, and therefore anything that might challenge that needs to be addressed. The relationship with Rachel Diamond was always about Captain America being so inspirational that he had this effect on people. He had this effect on Rachel Diamond where the goodness came to the surface. Captain America saw that goodness in her eventually. She was committed to working through her issues because she now had a great influence in her life. Putting her through trauma was uncalled for. But then the outcome is to just drive a wedge between her and Steve without ever remembering the reason they got together and the reason why they worked well together. And the worst thing, I cannot believe I forgot to say so, he spends the very next issue dressing up as her tormentor in front of her. What the fuck, man? I don't want to admit it, but I think this is a 7 thumbs up.